Hey everybody, so it's time for another episode of NHL Remember Him. This is episode 11, and today we're going to be talking about the NHL career of RJ Umberger. RJ Umberger is obviously someone who I certainly remember, and I'm sure most of you do too as well, because he played up until 2016, so he only retired a couple of years ago. But Umberger had a pretty good NHL career, only played for two teams, and was a decent, really decent second-line center at one point, and never was a superstar or anything like that, but was a very solid player for a number of years in the NHL. So, let's get right into it here. RJ Umberger played 779 career NHL games regular season. He scored 180 goals and 212 assists for 392 points. On top of that, he played 30 playoff games. He scored 14 goals and 6 assists for 20 points in the playoffs. Umberger originally was drafted 16th overall in 2001 by the Vancouver Canucks. But he never did play in the NHL for Vancouver. It actually took Umberger quite a while to actually get to the NHL, and he didn't play his first NHL game until post-lockout in 2005-2006, and by that point he was a Philadelphia Flyer. So he played for Philadelphia from 2005 to 2008, played 3 seasons with the Flyers. Then he was traded to Columbus, where he spent a majority of his career. And from 2008 up all the way until 2014, he played for the Columbus Blue Jackets and was one of their big-name top players. He ended his career back with the Philadelphia Flyers, where he played at the final 2 seasons of his career, 2014 through 2016. And then at that point, he was all done. He wasn't really that good of a player anymore, and that was pretty much it for RJ Umberger. But overall, he played, 11 seasons in the NHL, and he was a consistent 20-goal scorer for a few years. His first years in Columbus, first 5 seasons in Columbus, he was very good. So a couple of things worth noting here is that he really burst onto the scene in the 2008 playoffs with Philadelphia. That was the year that Philadelphia went to the Eastern Conference Final but lost to Pittsburgh, who eventually went on to lose to the Red Wings in the Stanley Cup Final. But he had a great postseason in 2008 for the Flyers. Up to that point, he was a decent player, but he was a third liner. Then he had a really good regular season that year where he hit 50 points for the first time in his career. In that postseason, he really broke out. And in 17 playoff games that year, he had 10 goals, 5 assists for 15 points in 17 games. And that really was like, okay, RJ Umberger is a legit player. He was then traded to Columbus that offseason at the draft, and he really immediately stepped in and became a top 6 player for the Columbus Blue Jackets. And his first 4 or 5 years in Columbus he was a top 6 player. He was really good. He was 20-plus goals every year, and 40-plus points every year, usually around 50. And once his career high came in 2010-2011 with 57. So he had some really good years in Columbus and was an important player for them. If you look at his first year in Columbus, he had 26 goals and 46 points. Followed that up with 23 goals and 55 points. Then went to 25 goals and 57 points. That was the best year of his career points-wise. Then he had 20 goals and 40 points. And then you started to see the decline. In the lockout-shortened season, he had 18 points in 48 games. That was not a good year for him. He had a little bit of a bounce back. His final year in Columbus, which was 2013-14, he had 18 goals and 34 points. But again, he was on the decline, and he was nothing like he was, 3-4 years before that, where he was in the mid-50s for points. There was significant decline there. Then he got traded back to Philadelphia where at that point he was a fourth liner and nothing more. And in his first year back with Philly, he only had 15 points and 9 goals. And then his final year in Philly, he only played 39 games. He wasn't even a regular in the lineup. He only scored 2 goals and had 11 points at the end of the year. And that was it for RJ Umberger. So he definitely faded out at the end of his career. But for a stretch there, especially in Columbus, he was consistently around 50 points and a 20-plus goal scorer. He had a pretty darn good career and was a pretty important player for the Blue Jackets at the time. So RJ Umberger is certainly a guy that I remember playing, I remember watching him play. Had some, a good start to his career in Philly, then really was a really, really good player for Columbus. And then towards the end, he faded out. And by the time he got back to Philly, he was nothing like he once was. But almost 800 career games, over 150 career goals, almost to 400 career points. Not a superstar by any stretch of the imagination, but certainly a very, very solid career for RJ Umberger. So he's a guy that I certainly remember, and I'm sure most of you do as well, and he's certainly worth remembering. 11 NHL seasons and a pretty darn good career. So always kind of, that second line center type player, and then obviously faded out to be a fourth line guy at the end of his career, and then eventually was quickly out of the league. But in his heyday, he was a very solid number 2 center. So with that ends episode 11 of NHL Remember Him, RJ Umberger. Like, comment, share, subscribe, follow on social media. All those links are in the description below. If you'd like to further support the channel, the links to our Patreon and merchandise store are in the description as well. Keep spreading the word about this channel. Let's keep this thing growing. Thank you very much for watching. Hope you enjoyed the video, and I'll talk to you guys soon.